I've been provided with an assortment of brushes made by Rosemary and Company Artist Brushes, and I want to review those today. I don't think I'll get to all of them in one video because that might take a while, but we'll talk about several of these and I can give you my impressions. Now, I should tell you a little bit about how I feel about brushes. First of all, there are artists who insist on only using Kolinsky Sable brushes, and they're spending hundreds of dollars on their paintbrushes. And this is not me. I have never felt comfortable spending a huge amount of money on a paintbrush, because what happens is as you're using the brush, they come to you with these beautiful, very fine points, and then as you paint, those fine hairs at the very point get worn down. And so after a while, your brush is just very round on the end. And so you don't get the fine detail that you got in the very beginning. And then I start thinking about replacing my brush. And of course, if you've spent $100 on a brush and the tip wears down in a couple of months, it's really hard to swallow that. So I like using synthetic brushes. They're a little bit more durable. Usually the synthetic material the bristles are made out of just lasts. It doesn't wear down quite as quickly. Means you don't have to be quite as careful with your brush, and if it does wear down and you get that rounded tip and you can't get those fine lines anymore, you can replace it without it being too painful on your pocketbook. One brush I've been using pretty much for 90% of my paintings is the Escoda Versatile number 10 Rigger. And so now that I have this brush that I love, every brush that I use I kind of stack up against that one and compare it. So we'll take a look at these brushes. And first of all, I have got two or three different series here. First of all, I have the Sable Blend, which is series 401. And I have a number 12 round and a number 10 round. And so these are a Sable brush, but they're a synthetic Sable and synthetic blend. So you're getting hopefully the softness of Sable with the snap of synthetic bristles. So we'll talk about and a little bit lower price point. Then I have two in the series 344, which is a synthetic brush, and I have a number 10 and a number 12 in the synthetic. So now I can compare a Sable blend with a purely synthetic brush. And then I have some specialty brushes which I asked for. I have two sword brushes, and these are series 309. And a sword brush gives you a very unique brush stroke, and we'll look at those very briefly during this review. And then finally I have the Shiraz Rigger, and this is a number 8 Rigger and a number 10, which is slightly larger. These are smaller than my Versatile number 10 Rigger. Different brush companies, the sizes aren't really standard, so a number 10 with one company might be the same as a number 8 with another. So there's nothing that really compares to checking out those sizes for yourself in the store. I was provided with a catalog, and this is their Rosemary and Company's Spring and Summer 2017 catalog, and this is just a huge catalog considering all it is brushes. Every page there are just more brushes to choose from, and it's a little bit overwhelming just to consider how many options you have. Here we have pure Kolinsky Sable brushes. Then we have brushes that are made specifically for particular painters. Jean Haynes has a brush line. This is a Roger Jones brush that I'm open to, which actually looks like a really gorgeous brush. Kolinsky Sable as well. And then throughout the book you'll see just different sizes and styles. It looks to me like in the catalog the brushes are shown in actual size, which is fantastic because, like I said, it's hard to choose a brush if you don't know what size it's actually going to be. And then we have pure red Sable, Kolinsky Sable, and a squirrel hair synthetics, and pretty much everything in between. So that's nice. It suits. While it might feel overwhelming to see how many choices there are in this one catalog, it's really nice to know that if you're looking for a brush, for an assortment of brushes, you can get them all from one place. So we're going to start by just working with this Sable blend, the number 12 series 401 Rosemary and Company Sable blend. And I've been having a little bit of fun lately just working with brush marks. I have a beautiful book on Chinese brush painting, and I cannot consider myself to be a brush painting master. And I love making beautiful marks with my brush on paper. It's just really satisfying. So I can take some of this Sleeping Beauty turquoise from Daniel Smith. I can dot in a little bit of phthalo yellow green and watch those colors flow. And I can work with this very soft brush, pressing it down, lifting, and then just pulling to create that fine line. And I am liking the fact that this Sable blend is a very soft brush. If you've used synthetic brushes, you'll know they tend to have a little more stiffness, a little more snap. And while that feels, for a beginner painter especially, often that feels easier to control, as you progress through your painting journey, often you'll find you start gravitating toward a softer brush. And at least I've certainly found that in my many years as a watercolorist. I like working, another thing you'll hear is watercolorists will often tell you that you should use the biggest brush you can get away with for your paintings. And I didn't used to believe that was true. I thought, why would you use a big brush when you can't get those small details? And that's why we want these big brushes that come to a fine point, so you can create those big marks and then also create a beautiful fine line. And what happens is as we progress in our painting journey, again, we want to start thinking about not being always in control, but giving the watercolor some leeway to play. And if we're always controlling every single stroke in very small strokes and tiny detail, you're just not going to get that loose and expressive stroke that you're looking for. Let's move over, while I've been using the number 12 Sable blend, let's move over to the synthetic, the Series 344. And so we can just get an immediate comparison to the different makeups of these brushes. And right away I'm noticing, yeah, it is a little bit stiffer. You have a little bit more snap to it. And that wonky shape isn't the brush's fault, it's mostly me. And what you get with a synthetic is you do get a little more durability, and you definitely do get more affordability, knowing that means I don't have to baby a synthetic brush. And often when you have an expensive brush, you kind of do feel like you have to take pretty special care with it so that you don't wear it out. I really like this little brush stroke down here. Let's see if we can do that again. One thing I've noticed with these brushes as well that I should mention is that they have a slightly thicker barrel. The handle is just a little wider than you might observe with other brands of brushes, and I like that. It feels a little more solid in your hand. You are probably less likely to get a cramp from holding onto your brush too tight, although I believe that if you're holding your brush too tight, it's probably a sign that you need to take a break and loosen yourself up, do some stretches or something. You're just going to find a wider handle a little more ergonomically comfortable. Let's look at the sword brush for a minute, and I keep going to the largest brush. This is a 3/8 inch sword brush. The other one I have is a 1/4 inch, and the width refers to the width of the ferrule right here, and so they're measuring by that width, not by the length of the bristles or anything else. And what I like about a sword brush is you can get a wide stroke, and you can almost get, you can load it with water and put pigment on the tip, and then you'll get this variegated stroke where it's both wide, or you've got multiple colors happening there. which I think is really beautiful. And then you can also get really fine lines, and so you can create these beautiful gestural strokes and sketchy marks that feel really natural. And that one's so faint you're not going to see it, which is too bad because it's really pretty. And so I can drag and swoop with my brush and have this wide and narrow kind of interplay, pulling with the brush and flicking it up across the paper, and that's the most exciting thing I've done so far in this little brush testing sketch. I'm always looking to excite myself and see what I can feel inspired by when I'm painting. And sometimes it takes some time to find that thing that makes your heart go, ooh, I want to paint more of that. And I just did that with this gorgeous wide curve. And you know, the funny thing is that my brush did that for me. It wasn't something I really planned. I just kind of dragged the width of the brush down across the paper. And what happened from there inspired me to push my boundaries just a little bit more. And this almost feels like there's a butterfly in here, and that almost looks like a butterfly. So we have this kind of interplay of flowers and butterflies, which I think is really pretty. Let's pull up some line over here too. When you start to work with light touch on your brush, letting the brush do its own little organic movements and play, you really are collaborating with watercolor. And when you feel like some of this is you painting and some of it's just magic, well, that's a pretty exciting thing to have happen. This little pink guy over here is all alone. Let's put some pink over somewhere else. And I'm using not the same brush that originally painted that, so I'm not getting the same shape, but that's okay. We can adjust it in a minute. So you know, I've grabbed a sword brush because I love the unpredictability of it. You take planning out of your own hands and you give it to the brush, which I think is really special. I often feel that way when I'm working with a rigger brush as well. And these rigger brushes, you know, really the difference between a rigger brush and a round brush is the length of the bristles. And so I have a brush that just gives me a little bit longer bristles, so I get a little bit more of a flex and a bend, and that gives me a whole other aspect of that unpredictability that can be really inspiring, and yet I'm still able to create that fine point. I think I need more of that yellow-green. And I love that a big rigger holds lots of paint, and yet you can still have either a wide line from working with it sideways, just pulling those bristles across the paper, or you get a thin line by just drawing with the tip of the brush. And this, just trying to figure out what I should do here. This butterfly flower shape needs a little bit of blending into the background. It's just too all alone on my painting. I'm going to add a little hint of some of the other colors in the painting there. These riggers are a little stiffer than what I'm accustomed to using, so they have a little more of that snap, a little bit more of a bold holding of their shape. In my dreams of the future, one day I will get my own custom-made brush, and it'll be a long, soft rigger that just dances across the paper, and I can just sit and watch it play. Now that this painting is dry, I can finish it off with a few pretty brush strokes, and I love adding just a little bit more line where some of the lines may have disappeared and faded away into a fluid wash. And Going back to the large rigger here. The color I'm using here, this dark, is called Shadow Violet from Daniel Smith, and I love the way it separates as it dries, and you can see little hints of the violet and the other pigment that makes up the color. And so there's like this gray and there's a violet, and because I've added other colors, we see blue and we see green, and it's really very pretty. And I'm actually going to go back to that sword brush because it's just so much fun to make very fine lines. Second layers are the places where you want to add detail, line that in a kind of abstract like this, those lines, you want them to kind of accentuate and guide your eye through the painting. So you choose to place those lines in a way that moves you through and helps you experience the painting a little more fully. And for me, that's maybe using the side of the brush to strengthen some shape here. And I think even some splatters maybe of the violet, adding a little water to thin it down. And often when you splatter like that, you get very crisp, dark shapes. So I like to come in with a damp brush and soften some of those colors out. So you have spatter and a little bit of bleeding violet. And I think we're going to consider, think of maybe some little flower buds over here with the side of the brush. Those are almost trumpet shaped, isn't that fun? And with the sword brush you get a different effect, a different response from the brush as you start to add color. And the little hints of pink in the painting, I just see those and I want to repeat them a little bit, so it's not too late to do that. Just here and there. And I think a few more strokes of Shadow Violet will just finish off our painting. Remember that flowers often have stamens with some thin lines coming out from the center of the flower. Not all flowers, but if I add some of those in, it'll define that shape just a little bit more. And if these are butterflies, well, maybe they're butterfly legs. Because it's a very loose painting, we get to be a little open-ended with what exactly our viewer is experiencing. And this painting is about the brush strokes and the movement. And I'm getting so absorbed in this painting that I'm really kind of losing focus on creating a great video for you to see. But what I hope you've seen is just that beautiful process of starting with those random shapes. And here in the beginning, it wasn't really coming together for me. I changed it up completely when I created that one sweeping stroke that kind of guided me through the rest of the painting. If you don't feel like you get beautiful brush strokes when you are working on your line work, take the time to warm up with line work when you start a painting session. Just take a brush and scribble with it. Try some fluid strokes and start to look for what your own kind of brush language is. It's very unique to each artist. It's similar to handwriting that way. And if you're still struggling, it might be time to consider upgrading your brush, trying something a little different. For me, I was very traditional in always just using round brushes, and when I started to look at rigger brushes and sword brushes, it kind of revitalized an aspect of my painting that had gotten a little bit dull and stagnant. And so being able to just change it up and force myself out of my comfort zone with a different brush was a really good learning experience and growing experience for me. And I'm creating things that really excite me just by using a brush I can't control quite as much. I will put a link to all of the brushes that I used today in the description for this video. I encourage you to check out the vast catalog of Rosemary and Company brushes on their website. And don't forget that I am giving away Rosemary and Company brushes in my weekly summer challenges. By visiting my website, watercolorsummerchallenge.com, you can enter to win the grand prize, which is an $800 watercolor package. Also check out the weekly challenges where there are additional chances to win just by playing along. I choose a random winner or several random winners every week and to win some great watercolor goodies from our prize sponsors. That's all at watercolorsummerchallenge.com. Check out the links in the video description below for supply lists and resources. Don't forget to subscribe to me here on YouTube. I post new content almost every week, and I love sharing my watercolor knowledge with you. You can also find me on Facebook, Angela Fair Artist, and my website, angelafair.com.